What's going on, everybody? You are now tuned in to Ron Review React, and guess what we about to do? We about to review and react, and today on the agenda is The Many Saints of Newark. This movie can be seen in theaters and on HBO Max. It is a prequel slash spinoff series to the hit HBO show that ran in the late 90s to mid 2007. The Sopranos, starring the popular, famous, world-renowned Tony Soprano, played by James Gandolfini. Gandolfini, I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly. I believe I am. Now, the interesting about this is it is marketed as the origin stories of Tony Soprano, the character that James Gandolfini played. And ironically enough, the role is being taken over by his son, Michael Gandolfini, to play a younger version of said Tony Soprano. Now, within this run, the Sopranos have had roughly about 6 seasons. I remember that the finale was kind of panned because of the ending. Now, I'm going to be able to give you guys a different perspective because I am not a diehard Sopranos fan. I'm not a moderate Sopranos fan. I could not even call myself a Sopranos fan. I have yet to ever watch a full episode from start to finish. I've yet to watch a season. None of that. So I'm going into this cold turkey, and I'm going to be viewing this as a gangster flick. And does this flick allow a new viewer, does it give them that nugget of curiosity to be like, hey, let me explore the media that's already out there with this franchise and this property? Now, let's get underway with the pros. Now, me, like I said, not being a diehard Sopranos fan like some are, my views on this might be a little bit one way or another because I do not have a loyalty to said characters. I don't have a point of reference. I'm viewing this as everybody is new characters. How are they developed, and how much does this movie make me want to further explore these said characters? Now, one of the pros that I really enjoyed about the movie is I like the look. It looked dirty. It looked filthy. It looked vintage in a way. And if that doesn't make sense, I get it. But the movie is set in the 60s, I believe. It looks like it's in the 60s, except dirty. It's like there's a layer of grunge or filth over the camera lens. But I do like that. Now, it kind of takes you to a place and sets the scenery and sets the tone. I like that. To me, it was a positive for the movie. Another positive, which I will say some people might find this as a negative, but the movie surprisingly did not follow Tony Soprano. Or better yet, Tony Soprano was in the movie, but he was an ancillary character. He was, I don't want to say he was a secondary character, because he was more like a third and a fourth character. Like, he was in the background doing things, but was not primary by any means. Now, one main thing overall that I want to say about the movie is it gives me enough nuggets to be kind of curious to see where some of these characters develop, where they end off at, and where their plot or storyline, where it develops to. It does do that. Now, if we want to get into the cons, some takeaways from the film. The dialogue, not necessarily the best, if I'm going to be objective on it. Some of it's a little bit clunky. Some of it's a little bit kind of off, or just not the best written dialogue. But I think some of it, like one of the things that took me off was the excessive use of the F word. But if I'm not mistaken, that is something that the series of The Sopranos brought to it, which kind of made it stand out from other series that you might be used to watching. So I can't really take the overuse of the F word as a knock, but the dialogue in general, a little bit of on the clunky side, a little bit. As a gangster movie in general, it's kind of an average or below average gangster movie. And this is comparing it to the Scarfaces, the Blood In, Blood Outs, the why is it slipping my mind? The Menace to Society, the Boys in the Hood, the gangster movie frame. Comparing it to that, the Ganglands, the what's another good one? The Pulp Fictions, the gangster movies that the Godfathers that come to mind when you think of The Departed, movies like that. When you think about it as just a gangster movie, stripping away the popularity of the characters and the property that it is based upon. One of the takeaways is it is kind of an average gangster movie, maybe even below average, because it does kind of rely on your intrigue to be familiar with the characters that are set in the movie already, in the universe that the 6 seasons of The Sopranos has already built up. It does kind of rely on that, but not entirely. Another thing is it is stereotype city. Now, I would assume how black people will look at other African Americans in cinema, and they generally are playing the gangster or the teeth-sucking pimp or the mystical, magical Negro, or, you know what I mean? They have these set roles for them where it's like, yo, be whatever everybody else thinks of you, be that. Max out your stereotypes, especially when it comes to black gang movies. Be your stereotype. And this movie, I would assume this is probably Italian stereotypes at its best. Hey, this, that, and all this. It's stereotype city. I have to say that. And if I'm going to make another critique of the film, it does come off anticlimactic. There's this narrative that's kind of sewn in the movie, and then when you get to the end, it's kind of like, that's where that narrative led up to? Okay. I guess. It was okay, but could have been a little bit more climactic. Another thing, people kind of, which I get it's a gang movie, and maybe that is part of the stereotype city, but people kind of kill without reason. And I was told, because I asked somebody that is a fan of the series, is this how this character is supposed to just be, flip from this to this? And they said, that is kind of a narrative as you go on in the series. So I'm going to chalk it up as that. But even with the main character, Dickie, which is, I guess, referenced in the series, he has some moments where he seems like he goes from 0 to 150 and flips out. So that's kind of like, 0 to 100 to murder instantly. And there's some characters in the film that probably should be having more of a role, or maybe they're spoke about later on in the series. But that being said, there's characters that disappear for long periods of time. And then they might sprinkle in for 2 seconds, but then disappear again. Wasn't overly big on that. But my final thoughts on the film was that though it does have its shortcomings and its flaws, and overall it is a mediocre, average to maybe slightly below average gangster film, as somebody that's not overly familiar with the property, just as a brand, I know it exists, and they have trademark characters such as Tony Soprano. I'm aware that he is culturally relevant. Giving that, the movie does sprinkle enough in there to make me wonder, well, where do these characters end up at? I'm interested to see what ties does this character have into the deeper narrative or the further plot. And I'm going to go ahead and give it if it was 1 out of 10, 5 being average, 10 being immaculate, amazing, damn near a perfect film, because I don't believe in giving perfect films, I would give this a 6.5 to a 7, which is good. Don't get me twisted. Slightly above average due to the fact that there are not characters I'm familiar with, but I'm familiar with the brand, and they do enough to make me, as somebody going in cold turkey, interested to see where these characters end up at in their future, being that this is a prequel. And I'm curious to see how other fans of the property actually view this. One of the people that I've talked to that is a fan of the property actually really liked the movie and was telling me there's tons of Easter eggs and little nuggets sprinkled in here and there that give people that are familiar with the property a sense of pride and like, hey, I know about that. I get where this is going. Which, if you're making something off of an established property, that's all you can ask for. Enough for the fans of the property to like, and enough for people that might not know of the property to be interested and intrigued to maybe want to see further where some of these people's character arcs and narratives end up at. But that being said, make sure you follow me, like, click sub, please. New channel getting going. I want to get feedback, I want to get comments. I want to know how you feel about the reviews that I'm doing, about the content that I'm giving you. Follow me on Twitter. There'll be a link in the description to follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Please like, click subscribe to the channel. Like, share. This has been Ron Review and React, and we are reviewing and reacting. Catch us on the next one. Thank you.